the scientists of the world have freely exchanged their knowledge. This worldwide search for truth has led to the greatest of all discoveries, atomic energy. No one scientist or nation is responsible. The periodic law of the elements was discovered by Mendeleev, a Russian. The electron by Thomson, an Englishman. The theory of relativity by Einstein, a German. The atomic nucleus by Rutherford, a New Zealander. Atomic structure by the Dane, Niels Bohr. The positron by Anderson of the United States. The neutron by Chadwick of Great Britain. Artificial radioactivity by the Joliots of France. Uranium was transmuted by Fermi of Italy. The mesotron theory was developed by Yukawa in Japan. Barium was derived from uranium by Hahn of Germany. Uranium was split by Meitner of Austria. This pooling of knowledge is shared by all. There is no secret. When a neutron strikes, the atom is split. Released neutrons split other atoms. The result is atomic energy. Shall the people of the world use this energy for the destruction or the betterment of mankind? The United States used this power to destroy Hiroshima. Deadly radioactive rays, and in a matter of seconds, downtown New York would be a mass of ruins. Throughout the entire lower end of Manhattan, most people would be dead. All buildings from Washington Square to the Battery would be destroyed. In Chicago, from Halsted Street to Lake Michigan and from Chicago Avenue to Roosevelt Road, the city would lie in ruins. In San Francisco, devastation would be complete from Pacific Avenue to Townsend Street, and from Van Ness Avenue to the Ferry Building. One atomic bomb did this to a city and its people. Even the most ruthless aggressors of the past had no such weapon. A soldier of Alexander with one spear killed one. Napoleon's cannon in one firing killed 12. The Kaiser's Big Bertha killed 88. Hitler's B-2 killed 168. Japan's war against the United States ended after a B-29 dropped one atomic bomb that killed close to 100,000. The deadly power can be exerted at great distances. The first atomic bomb was dropped on a round trip of 3,000 miles on August 1945. On November 20th of that year, the effective range was extended to 8,000 miles. The United States had demonstrated that an atomic bomb could be launched to reach any country in the world. A grim reminder to all nations that had the bomb and this plane been in possession of the Axis powers, they could have conquered the world. There would have been no defense against this weapon. A single plane would have broken through to destroy the heart of London. V-2s with atomic warheads could have destroyed England. At the moment of surrender, Hitler had in the blueprint stage transoceanic rockets, which could have destroyed our cities. U-boats could have surfaced off our shores and launched atomic rockets against vital targets. The fifth column would have had an even more insidious means of destruction. Parts of bombs could have been smuggled in, and under the cloak of darkness, infernal machines could have been assembled by saboteurs. It is therefore an imperative necessity that all the nations of the world unite to avert catastrophe. The United Nations must establish a worldwide control of atomic energy and of other weapons of mass destruction. Representatives of the peoples of the world must together make laws which will abolish war, laws which will hold the individual in all lands responsible for crime against world peace. Only through proper control of atomic energy can we answer the question how this great force may be used for the benefit of mankind. Atomic energy, freed from the menace of war, can be for all people in all nations the great fusing force of one world. The choice is...
The picture that you are about to see is a film record of your civil offense in action. It was produced and filmed by WNYC television unit of the city of New York. This motion picture was not staged. It was taken during our citywide test, which was held on the night of November the 14th, 1951. The precision with which all of our civil offense emergency divisions functioned, despite the worst kind of weather, shows the spirit and skill with which the civil offense personnel did their job. During World War II, it took 1,000 planes to destroy one city. Now it is possible for that same armada to destroy the cities of a whole nation in one surprise raid. We must be prepared. We cannot disperse, rebuild, or bury our cities. There isn't the time, or the effort isn't available. Our job is to protect them in every way we can. The civil unarmed defense is the second of the two parallel efforts. The first is the buildup of our armed defenses and striking forces. This is the job of the military. Ours is the job of civil defense, internal defense. Our job is to survive and to do the very best we can to limit the damage. Here in this briefing room, the members of our project committee, comprising New York City government officials, working together with business and civic leaders, planned for the drill that occurred on November the 14th. These men put in months of work, long hours, working out all the details of the November test project. The project whose purpose was to reveal how well we were trained, how ready we were for the surprise attack, and whether there were any other flaws in our operations. The job that these men did was a big job, and a good job. The job that was done can only be done with over 200,000 civil defense volunteers who participated on the night of November the 14th. Here in this building, all civil defense activities are planned and then subsequently carried out by the various emergency divisions. It takes a lot of people with a lot of skills, all combined for one purpose: the welfare and protection of more than 8 million people, 8 million people which includes you and me. Our job goes round the clock, 24 hours a day, every day in the week, and with no holidays. This is a big job, it's a big city, and we are aiming for the help and cooperation of everyone. And here are some of the reasons why we need approximately 1 million people, men and women, to volunteer for service with the Medical Emergency Division, the Welfare Emergency Division, Air Warden Service, Public Works, Police Auxiliary, Fire Auxiliary, Communications and Transportation, the job of helping protect themselves, their families, and their neighbors. Take a look at this map of our city. It's a big map. It's scaled 1 inch to every 2,000 feet. Every inch represents about 10 city blocks. A lot of people live in every inch of this map. You live there. I live there. The bomb may hit anywhere. Nobody's going to tell us when it will hit or where it will hit. Whether it hits in your neighborhood or in my neighborhood, it is our job to be ready. Ready for that time, if and when it happens. The film that you're about to see could have been a picture of an actual devastated area. Actually, it is a picture, a record of what occurred on the night of November the 14th, 1951. You will now see how your civil defense forces performed during this test operation. We need your cooperation. Our best defense is civil defense.
This is a story that happened, that may happen this day, that week, last month, next year. This is a story of our time, a waiting time, a rehearsal time that echoes the question wherever people live and work and dream. Will there be peace for all of us and all our children? This is the question that echoes in London, Paris, Rome, Madrid, Moscow, and in New York. This is the question. But there is no question that life must go on, that when the day's work is over, there's shopping to be done, an appointment to be kept, the house to be tidied after the children are fed and washed and put to bed. There is no question, for when it comes to work and play and raising a family, you just do it. There is no question when it comes to living, only the hope for a better day, a better life. There is only the question, will there be peace?
Temperature 58 degrees, the humidity 94%. The winds from the south at 9 miles per hour, and the barometer reads 29.78 and rising. There'll be occasional showers tonight, clearing about midnight. Tune in again tomorrow night at the same time for the latest up-to-the-minute happenings on
So the hope still remains that the big question before the United Nations will be settled by the end of the year. That peace, freedom...
But until there is peace, until that day, until then, the people live and work, and the people watch. Until then, against that time, radar, the listening eye, made of cable, coil, and tube, electronic rampart of a nation and a people, scanning the height and width of skies, counting the year and month, the week, the day, the hour. Until then, against that time, a nation watches, a pattern of defense and survival, a practice pattern of night and day observation, of drill and rehearsal. And while a city works and plays and lives, a city prepares to be prepared. Whatever the hour, whatever the time of day, the drill is planned, the rehearsal called. An enemy plane, an imaginary plane, approaches the city. Yellow, alert civil defense, yellow. And the people are called. Wherever they are, the people are called. Members of the civil defense of the city of New York, ready to put their hours of drill and practice to the test. Volunteers who give of their time and of their skill, born of weeks and months and years. Men and women ready to save lives and property. These are the faces of your neighbors, trained to protect their neighbors, trained to protect you. These faces do not belong to actors, but they know their roles. They await their cues. And now is a time of waiting, split into seconds. Now the plane, the rehearsal plane, draws near the city. And time that's measured becomes measured time. An imaginary bomb is to be dropped. Objective, where, in which of the 5 boroughs, and when. Still the listening eye hunts the sky. Now time is measured in half seconds. Locate the plane. Track the plane. Let waves of sound halt the sweep of time. Find the plane, track the plane, and now reverse the target. Not the city, but the plane. It's time. The plane is loose, an aluminum bird over the city. Alert the city, now. The brazen voice shrieks, and a sleeping city wakes. The imaginary bomb has struck. The reports come in. About 30 blocks to the northeast, an explosion. A mile due south, raging fires. Avenue and street marked and mapped at central control. The bomb area plotted, ground zero established. The area radioactive, and the first to roll, the Radiac team. Before any men or equipment can move, Radiac must report its findings to central control. Which areas are safe and which dangerous. Communication is established, and the bombed area Geiger checked for radiation. Reports are made by walkie-talkie, linked to radio car, and it, in turn, linked to central control. Civil defense is ready.
Car 128, have your message. Over and out.
And the call goes out to all departments. All clear. All clear. All clear. These men and women are members of the Civil Defense Forces of the City of New York. Telephonists, message reviewers, nurses, doctors, auxiliary police and firemen, air raid wardens, all doing their job, the job of civil defense. This is a rehearsal, an all-out rehearsal. The objective, to contain and put out the fires, to evacuate the injured, to render first aid, to provide for the aged and the homeless, to restore the city. This is a rehearsal, as near to the real thing as can be arranged. A rehearsal for tonight, a rehearsal for civil defense. And this is City Control. Communications, the nerve center, the brain center of civil defense. Now the messages come in. On-the-spot reports from warden, police, and fire forces. Send men, machines, equipment. A house has caught fire. A building has caved in. People are trapped. Send more men, more machines, more equipment. The job now is to get the messages through, review and process them. The job now is to do things fast, do them quickly, efficiently, to distribute the messages to the proper departments, each with its function: fire, police, public works, medical, health, welfare, communications, transportation, all working together as one team. Neighbors skilled and drilled in their tasks, working together for the welfare of all. The waiting is over. The equipment rolls. Men and equipment now coordinated into one big rescue team. Fires will be of two types, primary and secondary. The primary fires are those unleashed by bomb or incendiaries. Secondary fires are those started by overturned stoves, furnaces, and by lighted flames. The job at hand is to drown the fire, contain the fire, put out the fire. From upstate watersheds, water gathered from hill and stream and river will pour onto the fires. Should the long aqueducts or the city mains break, then water from the Atlantic Ocean will drown the fire, pumped from river and ocean to drown the fire. Thousands of men, firemen and auxiliaries, trained to fight the fire. Thousands and thousands more needed. More men, more machines, more equipment. The calls come in, the fires mapped. The needs are answered. And all through the drill, from all points of the city, as the needs mount, men and machines are put to the test. Civil defense is put to the test. A water main break. Another incident, one of many, to test the hours of training and drill. Water is precious, and water pressure vital to drown the fires that rage. Central Control is contacted, the message received, and without delay, every message is noted, processed, checked, and distributed. And communications by phone, landline, and radio sends the information along, dispatches men and equipment, keeps the operation moving, keeps it working smoothly, efficiently. Men and equipment for every kind of job. Men and equipment to do the job. Men and equipment to fight the fire. A vast undertaking. Doing a job that takes still more men and still more machines. But no matter what the obstacles, doing the job. To evacuate the people, to remove the people from danger zones to places of safety, to limit casualties, to render first aid, to save lives, to provide medical care, to bring the people through to safety. This is the combined job of fire auxiliaries, first aid, and medical personnel to get them out of the buildings, out of the fire, out of the danger. No matter what and where the danger, the people must be saved, the injured given first aid, and removed speedily to clear through medical stations to hospitals where the proper and fullest care will be given. Hundreds of these first aid stations have been located in the city's 30 health districts. Equipment will be stored at these locations, equipment to save lives, and personnel assigned: doctors, dentists, nurses, pharmacists, clerks, stretcher bearers, and in addition, radio men with communications equipment. At each station, casualties will be treated and evacuated for hospital treatment. Mobile units, first aid stations on wheels, will move in wherever needed. The people will be cared for. Throughout the operation, 1,001 incidents to be taken care of, but everything geared for rescue. No matter what the obstacle, the people must be rescued, removed, and given medical care. And through it all, communications must be maintained. Communications, vital link between the people and their safety. Here in the first aid stations and hospitals, the skill and science of doctors will be put to use. Here, the well will take care of the injured. Here, where pain knows no color line, the people will be eased, their injuries treated, their lives saved. Here, over 17,000 of our city's doctors will function for the good of all. And with the help of nurses and nurses' aides, and with men trained in radiation detection, these people will put the finest medical care and treatment to work. Who are the people who will be affected? Who will be homeless? Who will be separated from family and friend and neighbor? You. And the mammoth job of bringing people back together again, of comforting them, providing them with food and clothes and shelter. This is the job of the city's welfare department, working together with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. Look at these faces. Your neighbors, your friends, your family. The rehearsal is almost over. Soon the people will wash away the marks of make-believe. Soon the night will be over and the day will come. People will return to their jobs, to their daily tasks, will resume their peaceful occupations, resume their lives. But the night is still here. The test is not over. Until that day, the question will echo, will there be peace for all of us and all our children? Until that day that the answer is clear, peace for all of us in all the world, for all the children. Until then, the drill must be carried out, the rehearsal called, so that all of us may work together for our safety, our welfare, our lives. Until then, we must learn to work together. Until then, we must learn to be prepared. And the night will pass. The day will come. And in the cities of the world, in the houses of people, in their minds and in their hearts, peace will come.
could be any street, any town, USA. Wherever you are, you're probably part of a certain old-fashioned, homebred spirit of, well, do you mind an old-fashioned word? Let's call it neighborliness. Helping one another, sharing the load, and not minding a bit. He's a pretty good egg, this guy next door. It's a spirit demonstrated in dozens of different ways, either casually or by design. It can range from sharing the daily carpool to sharing the latest news over a clothesline. There's nothing new, of course, about this attitude. This nation was practically built by this neighborly feeling. If you look back to earlier days, you'll find the common need for protection and men acknowledging a common bond with each other in providing it. Was a young lady getting married? The cozy quilting bee started off her trousseau. A man didn't have to build his own house. Often his friends organized a roof-raising party. The classic conception of Help Thy Neighbor was the volunteer fire department. The westward push was a group effort. The lone covered wagon would seldom make it. And so it is today, as we work together for a common cause, for a common good. Helping others is almost a natural instinct. Oh, I beg your pardon. There's been an interruption. But in today's world, we live with the continuing possibility of such interruptions as we contemplate the shape of Muscus agaricus, or poisonous mushroom. It is an ominous fact that man's knowledge allows him to obliterate his very civilization if he chooses. Modern science has provided bombers which can span continents and oceans. Guided missiles are expected to fly at supersonic speeds. Bombers can deliver the H-bomb. Missiles may have H-bomb warheads. Can the defense always stop them, as in this test? A few words about the bomb now. The A-bomb, which did this to Hiroshima, is now a mere firecracker in today's lineup of thermonuclear pyrotechnics. The explosive power delivered by all bombs dropped by U.S. planes in World War II did not equal that released by the recent test explosion of an H-bomb. How much heat does an H-bomb produce? The temperature on the surface of the fireball is as great as that generated on the surface of the sun. Small wonder, then, that an H-bomb can virtually destroy everything within a radius of 3 miles from blast center. The blast alone is capable of gouging out a hole a mile across and 175 feet deep. What does all this have to do with neighborliness, you ask? The answer is not yet obvious to enough people. The grim truth is that more than ever before in history, we must learn to help each other in the most ultimate of all objectives, survival. Key to this is civil defense. If sudden nuclear warfare should hit America, people will have to take care of themselves. The military would have a war to fight. National survival will depend on local action now, on communities training and working together. How does the community go about building an effective civil defense? It begins first on the national level in Battle Creek, Michigan, where the Federal Civil Defense Administration has established national headquarters directed by Vadel Peterson. From here stems the overall coordination and guidance for civil defense units all over America. State and local operations are integrated in a national team effort and tied in with military action. Stockpiling of supplies and equipment and the designation of critical target areas are also a federal responsibility. So let's examine a typical target city. Reading, Pennsylvania. Reading is really no different from dozens of other communities which weave business, industry, and livability into the accustomed tapestry of the American scene. We find the same hopes, objectives, and activities that are worth preserving and protecting. And in the county courthouse is the nerve center that stimulates all efforts in this direction, the Berks County Civil Defense Headquarters. Each local civil defense unit is set up by civic leaders with a steering committee to direct its activities. The executive director, Mrs. Marguerite Osman, and her secretary are its only full-time paid members among a force of 8,000 volunteers in the unit. Volunteer is the key word in this. You give of yourself and your time to the common cause. Since the program depends upon the degree of success in signing up volunteers, it is important to put the CD message before as many people as possible. The campaign must be widespread and hard-hitting. Appeals can be made by newspaper cooperation, by radio and television interviews, and by extensive poster and billboard display. If volunteers have particular skills, such as nursing or medical knowledge, typing or mechanical ability, it is recorded on his application. There is a job, however, for everyone in CD, and everyone can mean housewife, auto mechanic, banker, or young junior league matron. There's nobody who doesn't have a stake in survival, and it takes a lot of varied skills to guarantee it. But since most volunteers have to be prepared for their jobs, the biggest part of any CD unit is the training program. Berks County is typical of CD organizations all over the nation. They take it seriously. Supervised by the Red Cross and Berks County Medical Society, a class in first aid is taught the techniques needed in time of disaster. Here they set splints on a fracture. The unit's goal, at least 3,000 trained first aiders in an area of 100,000 people. This is the firing range at the Reading Pistol Club. The activity, training civil defense volunteers for auxiliary police. The instructor, an ex-police officer. When these men finish their complete course, they'll be capable of guarding power plants, bridges, water supplies, and other facilities necessary for the common good. They will also help control traffic and check possible panic. In short, these are the men who, during a morale-shattering emergency, will have a strong stabilizing effect on a jittery populace. Though in the minds of most people, civil defense brings thought of the bomb, volunteers also may be used for disasters due to cyclones, floods, or other wayward fits of nature. Readiness for any need is a dominant theme. Rescue trucks have special equipment for any emergency, and volunteers are trained in light and heavy rescue duty. On the outskirts of Reading, a special house is used for rescue drills. Mounting walls and removing injured personnel from upper floors of bombed houses would be a vital part of any rescue team's work. To show their enthusiasm, as well as preparing for any eventuality, the Berks County people have even trained rescue teams made up solely of women. A gas mask drill takes them into a house full of smoke to find the injured. Statistics prove that more civilians were killed in cities by fire in World War II than in any other way. CD firefighters, therefore, drill at special pits to learn how to smother various types of flames. This is an oil fire. This is basically wood. This is chemical. Here now is an illustration of fallout from a nuclear blast following a surface burst. Debris churned up and sucked into the air becomes radioactive. It will settle to the earth in patterns governed by wind currents, scattering a dangerous and often lethal residue over everything it touches. A blast over Washington, for instance, could set up a fallout pattern almost to New York. If you were not sheltered, a heavy enough radiation dosage could bring sickness or death. An important device to detect radiated residue is the Geiger counter. The closer it gets to contaminated material, the more violent its telltale clicking. Now here is the bell and light warning signal, probably the most important installation in the city in case of attack. In this case, the warning is received from the 26th Air Defense Division on Long Island, the FDCA Warning Center for this part of the East Coast. Lights flash the different warnings: attack probable, attack imminent, all clear. These signals are not only received here in CD headquarters, but at 15 other points in the county, any one of which can alert local CD units and set off local sirens. Such points are the Reading Fire Department, 3 hospitals in Reading, the Board of Education, and the House of Good Shepherd. But any warning attack must be followed by alerting other points. Volunteers are trained by telephone company officials to handle a battery of phones at CD headquarters, which would be staffed around the clock. Within minutes after a general alarm, operators will be on the job contacting 75 call points throughout the county, alerting them to the danger so they can mobilize their forces. If all phones are knocked out, Berks County has a backstop. This fully equipped truck, donated by local manufacturers, can take over all vital message service. Radio contact can be established from this mobile unit to police cars, fire engines, and taxis. It can also contact any of 35 private CD autos owned by amateur radio operators who can be pressed into the information setup. There is virtually no end to providing answers to the most urgent needs of communication. The Pagoda Motorcycle Club has enrolled many of its members as special CD couriers who will be able to go where no other vehicles can manage. They will also serve as auxiliary police or escorts for medical convoys. And where a cycle can't go, a horse and rider can. A survey of privately owned horses has been made, and more than 100 have been registered as available for emergency CD use. Another important survey deals with mass care centers. Surviving homeless must be taken care of somewhere. Any public building, church, or warehouse still standing will be pressed into use, and CD officials must know what facilities they have. Chief concern of mass care is feeding. With the flow of normal food supplies cut off, a careful marshaling of existing stocks is absolutely imperative. A nutrition council made up of dietitians from Albright College, the Reading School District, industry, and hospitals has already determined the type and amount of food necessary for various periods of emergency. Local doctors and nutritionists have also worked out a food survival kit, providing basic needs for one person for several days. Here now is an example of how a CD unit executes a gigantic exercise in survival. Inside these trucks are components of a 200-bed civil defense emergency hospital. The problem? To assemble at a predetermined location, because city hospitals have been bombed out. Here it will be the basement of the county home. 3 trained professionals plus 30 volunteers can set up the complete hospital in 4 hours. Swiftly, smoothly, with ordered intelligence and planning, the elements of a complete hospital flow into position and readiness. Everything in its place for instant use, including all departments, reception and sorting, central supplies, along with X-ray, surgery, pharmacy, and laboratory. It will all be there if they ever need it. And now it's done, right on the nose, in 4 hours. You see it here as direct evidence of how any American community can easily... Again, the interruption, the kind that will always be possible in an uneasy world. But I was about to say, something can be done about the H-bomb. All is not lost. Survival is possible, but only if you and your neighbor are willing to help each other. They're ready here. You can be ready too. Be alert today, alive tomorrow.
The President of the United States has said that the need for maintaining civil defense is one of the most serious problems confronting the nation today. Speaking on the importance of facing the facts with calmness and courage, the President said,
"The great chore you have here is to give people the facts, show them what they can do, get the federal leadership, get the participation of the states and the municipalities without terrifying people." I have one great belief. Nobody in war or anywhere else ever made a good decision if he was fighting to death. You have to look facts in the face, but you have to have the stamina to do it without just going hysterical.
I was tired, dead tired. My mind sought rest, anything but the subject of our all-day conference. Yet the questions still obsessed me. I longed for sleep, but I could still hear their voices.
How are we going to educate those people out there, Hammond? How are we going to present to the American people the facts about possible panic and its prevention?
Panic. Uncontrolled fear, according to the dictionary. Unreasoning action caused by the shock of a strange and threatening experience. But to millions of our citizens, it could have a far more important meaning. Because if our country is ever attacked, mass panic could complicate the problem of recovery. Fear. The reaction of a child to a strange and threatening experience. Each of these people had reacted in a different way to minor distresses, petty annoyances. But how would these same people react to a more shocking experience? What would each do in that most important moment or two following catastrophe? In my mind, I recalled an incident that had recently taken place in my home. The children stood by bewildered. But Mary reacted quickly, automatically, allaying the children's fears, assigning duties, providing leadership. In a jiffy, the fire was out. But what if my wife had not provided that kind of family leadership? Panic might have resulted. Panic that can start with an individual and his fear, striking out in all directions with lightning speed, flaring into a great fire. Here we sit, possibly a cross-section of the people of America. But what would each of us do if disaster suddenly overtook us? Some among us would succumb to fear. I recalled an incident one night at the movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give me your attention. There is no need for alarm. A small fire has broken out backstage and is being brought under control. In the meantime, please proceed to the exits, now being opened by the ushers. I repeat, there is no need for alarm.
Another example of how people will react when given leadership, when information dispels the raw material of panic. That boy and girl, probably high school kids, drilled and re-drilled from the day they entered our schools in what to do in the event of fire. I had read a report of a school incident. To test the resourcefulness of his class, the teacher had locked the exit usually used by the students. Immediately, one of the boys took over, instructed his fellow students to move at once to another exit. Here again was leadership, putting into effect a sound plan. Today, fatalities caused by school fires are a rarity because of simple, well-practiced plans. These are examples of people, young and old, taking charge, preventing panic. I thought of great disasters of the past. Casualty lists running into the thousands, where panic could have increased the toll so easily. Here were to be found many examples of people reacting intelligently, leadership springing up to take control, people caring for the sick and injured, proving once again that even untrained people will not panic if given information, leadership, a job to do. Yet the question was still in my mind. How can we educate the people of the United States against the dread psychological weapon of mass panic, against rumors that can spread like wildfire? The type of psychological warfare that a potential enemy would use. Intruder radio broadcasts to disrupt civil defense, to destroy faith in our leaders. Rumors about our strength to retaliate. Leaflets to advance civil strife. In short, anything to weaken our will to resist.
There will be no great reason for the existence of armies. They'll have undermined their enemies sufficiently before hostilities begin, so that the military organization they possess will be incapable of being used in the hour of need.
We can be prepared against such warfare. Good leadership, sound planning, prompt information can very well be the means of conditioning the behavior of our people How would the people on this train react to an immediate danger?
Our coach just got loose from the train. I can see it up ahead. We'll all be killed. Somebody do something.
Sorry I couldn't warn you folks. We have to put this car on a siding for a bit. Automatic brakes will take hold in a minute. You'll feel them.
Just a dream, but it gave me the clue to the answer to my question. In time of national emergency, we'll need many more conductors. We can't depend on leaders springing up unexpectedly. Where will they come from? Will he be a leader? Would she panic? People are unpredictable. Without information, leadership, and a job to do, they may panic. Pandemonium, chaos, and there is my answer. Civil defense can make order out of chaos, can prevent panic from starting by guiding the willing hands of survivors into organized activity. Developing skilled leadership. Telling the public what is happening. I saw these people, a cross-section of the people of America, and I longed to cry out, in the event of enemy attack or major disaster, you can be the one to prevent a chain reaction that could lead to panic. I felt the American people, given the facts, will understand the need and will act now to preserve our nation.
Disaster, the product of nature or the handiwork of man? Who is immune from its fury?
I'm Leo Hoig, Director of the nation's Civil Defense. We all know a great deal about disaster, both natural and man-made. As a nation, we have survived many crises. In this nuclear age, there could be a disaster of a different magnitude. Think for just a moment, if you will, of the challenge confronting us today. The world is divided into two factions. On the one side, the forces of freedom. On the other, the forces of communism. Today, one hydrogen bomb releases more explosive energy than all the bombs dropped on Japan and Germany in World War II. Added to this is the strange menace of fallout. I do not anticipate war, but the danger is inescapable. An enemy in desperation or in sheer idiocy could push the wrong button. The very existence of this threat, the capability of an enemy to launch a massive assault, makes it imperative that we prepare our defenses. We have developed the greatest peacetime military force in our history. But military power, the capacity to fight back and to retaliate, is no longer total defense. To assure the survival of our nation, we must have equally an effective non-military defense. No nation, however desperate, is likely to attack another which has the dual capacity to survive and to retaliate with annihilating power. The actions we take to develop this deterrence, the actions we take for our survival, whether military or non-military, cannot be postponed until the bombs are falling. They must be built into our daily thinking and living. To provide a sound basis for our non-military defense, we have prepared a comprehensive civil defense plan. This plan, with its annexes, is based on the premise that every citizen and all governments, federal, state, and local, share the responsibility for protecting life and property from enemy attack, with the federal government having the overall responsibility of guiding the total effort. This plan outlines the manner in which the vast resources of all governments will be marshaled to meet this threat. It sets forth your responsibility of knowing the threat and how to meet that threat. It outlines step by step how we can sustain ourselves in case there should be an attack.
The Canadian North, a land of snow and ice, desolate, rugged, almost impassable. Yet it has been penetrated and built upon, not from choice, but from necessity. For in this age of supersonic aircraft, some of the shortest routes to the heart of America cross the sky above this wilderness. And so men have come here to build and garrison one of America's first lines of defense, the distant early warning line. Spanning the continent, the Dew Line and its companions, the Mid-Canada and Pine Tree Lines, stand silent sentry. At sea and in the air, still other sentries watch. From these far-flung radars come reports to warning centers of the North American Air Defense Command. Here, positions of aircraft are plotted and planes are tracked until their identity is established. Thus, the military defense of America stands ready, alert for possible enemy attack. And here, too, America's civil defense starts. Beginning at NORAD, a strong chain of measures designed to help this nation survive nuclear assault is being forged. The first links are the 3 warning centers now in being. Working with the military, civil defense warning officers staff these centers around the clock. They know the situation at any moment. Using the national warning system, these officers can instantly alert more than 200 warning points across the nation. From them, in a matter of minutes, a warning can be transmitted to local systems and to the public. If attack is imminent, television and radio stations will be silenced to deny the aggressor navigational aids. However, radio stations will be allowed to return at reduced power to broadcast local survival instructions on the 640 and 1240 Conelrad frequencies. A national communication system needed to coordinate emergency government is also ready for operation. The system can be fully activated within an hour. This network will assure the continuity of vital communications between agencies of the federal government. These agencies have major civil defense responsibilities. They are ready now to operate from established relocation sites, ready to marshal the nation's vast resources for use in disaster. Resources such as manpower, food, transportation, and fuel, power and water. If we are attacked, everything that helped build this nation will be channeled into the effort to sustain and rebuild it. In addition to these reserves of basic resources, many special items that would be critically needed in a national disaster are being stockpiled by the federal government. In depots across the country, resources such as medical supplies and equipment of all kinds are being stored. Included are nearly 2,000 complete prepackaged hospitals. These 200-bed units can be set up in existing hospitals, schools, churches, and similar buildings. They are available now to states and political subdivisions for pre-positioning and training purposes. Critical engineering equipment is also being stockpiled. But effective use of these materials depends on an ability to assess surviving resources. At a staffed computer center, basic resources data are being assembled on magnetic tapes. When fed into computers along with data on weapons, the amount and location of remaining resources can be determined. A comprehensive radiological defense program is also underway. Thousands of measurement instruments have been distributed, and many more will follow. In training courses across the nation, men and women are being trained to measure fallout radiation and to evaluate the hazard. In addition, steps have been taken to enlist the aid of high school science departments in the training program. In these courses, over 1 million students a year will be trained on the effects of fallout and on radiological monitoring. Fixed monitoring stations operated by the Civil Aeronautics Administration and the United States Weather Bureau will also aid in assessing the fallout danger. But we still must find better ways of preparing our defenses. And so research is being conducted in a wide variety of fields. Inexpensive warning devices that plug into power outlets in homes, offices, and shops. Sound systems for use in noisy city commercial areas. Shelters to provide protection from blast, heat, and radiation. Human reaction to disaster. All are being studied to help protect this nation's most precious resource, its people. Today, every state, every city and town is within striking range of a determined enemy. After an attack, many areas may be isolated. Then, only the self-sufficient will survive. Hence, survival plans tailored to the problems of individual states and their communities have been developed in conformity with the national plan. Today, almost 100% of the nation's population is covered by some form of plan for local emergency operations. In some localities, plans have already been followed with decisive action. Portland, Oregon, for example, has provided for a succession of all key officials to ensure continuity of leadership. Regular city services, police, fire, health, and welfare have been given alternate disaster assignments, and citizen volunteers have been carefully trained as auxiliaries. In keeping with national policy, provision is made for rapid evacuation of the city if time permits. and for using available shelter if there is not enough time to evacuate. Portland also has a protected alternate operations center from which its government can carry on. Records that are essential to government operation and vital for the protection of individual rights have been duplicated and stored at the site. But despite our well-laid plans, if nuclear war does come, survival will be a starkly personal matter. Government, no matter how well organized, will take some time to function. Thus, it is essential that we make our own individual and family preparations. A fallout shelter equipped with enough water and food for 2 weeks and a battery radio should be an integral part of every home. Everyone should participate in and understand his community's plan for emergency action. Someone in each household should be prepared to administer first aid. Warning signals and what they mean should be firmly fixed in every mind. Civil defense is everybody's business.
Our ability to survive a nuclear attack depends first on how well each of us is prepared and on how well government at all levels is prepared to carry out its emergency action. When the individual and when governments are so prepared, then we will have effective civil defense, another deterrent to war. The mission of civil defense is to save lives and to protect property, and at the same time to preserve and perpetuate our concept of self-government, a concept that upholds the rights, the freedoms, and the dignity of the individual. Our mission is not an easy one, but it is one that with your help we can and we will accomplish.
Cats are funny creatures. Soft and cuddly and gentle most of the time, but in a flash they can turn into wild animals, killers, ready to destroy even their own kind. People can be like that sometimes too. Take my neighbors in Valley Road. It's a pleasant little street, only a couple of blocks long, and everybody knows everybody else. They're warm and friendly and cooperative, these neighbors of mine. Most of the men work together in the mill downtown and play together nights and weekends. The women have their babies together. And the kids grow up almost as though they were all members of the same big family. You couldn't ask for a friendlier place than Pleasant Valley. It didn't seem quite so friendly, though, when the new people moved into the block. Foreigners, obviously, from the looks of them. A good many of those same warm-hearted neighbors began to carry on like so many cats. Have you ever noticed how often we are that way about people and things we aren't familiar with? The new family stayed very much to themselves. They made no overtures, and we let them alone, too. Our wives said they were stuck up. The new people were English. Name of Trombley, we learned from the grocer. Like most Englishmen, his first thought was of next summer's garden. Or was it a garden? It looked more as though he were trying to bury himself alive. Well, the Englishman obviously was insane, everybody said. The speculation about him even interrupted the Saturday night poker game. But maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe there was something worth digging for in his backyard. Maybe. Well, Joe Watson's curiosity finally got the best of him. He broke the ice, and it made us all look pretty silly.
Of course not, old chap. Wish it were true, though. No, this is going to be a bomb shelter. We're only 12 miles from the city, and with the steel mill, well, one can't tell, can one?
It doesn't make sense to me. Now, the way I figure it, if the bomb drops, we're goners anyway, so what's the difference?
But you're wrong, Mr.
Joe Watson. Mind if I come over and take a look?
By all means, Mr. Watson.
Well, that's some big hole you've got there. But I still think you're going to a lot of trouble for nothing.
Oh, but you're wrong about not doing anything. I saw a bit of bombing in England during the last show. It was almost continuous from 1939 to 1945, night after night. But we only had 29,000 casualties in all that time. I can tell you, it'd been a lot worse if it hadn't been for shelters and an efficient civil defense organization.
Yes, but you didn't have the H-bomb then.
No, we didn't. And it's true the H-bomb is many times more powerful than anything we experienced in World War II. But the experts tell us that the best thing to do about the H-bomb is to get out of the way of it. Evacuate if you live in the center of town and have enough warning. But living out here like we do, this could mean the difference between living and not living. Now, if you'll give me a hand up out of this hole of mine, I'll show you. Now, this is the way our shelter is going to look when it's finished. You see, I'm using 6-inch reinforced concrete walls all around with a concrete slab roof and 2.5 feet of earth on top of that. The air intake's here, and this pipe is for the aerial of the wireless set.
But a setup like that is going to cost a fortune, isn't it?
This won't cost any more than a new garage, and we think our lives are rather more important than the finish of our motor car. Of course, we could just dig a hole and shore it and roof it with planks and cover it with dirt, but I don't think that'd stand up long under a terrific H-bomb blast. That's why we're building a sturdy shelter, even though it will cost us more.
So Mr. Trombley let us in on his secret. He told us how to get plans of our own from our local or state civil defense director. Plans for all kinds of shelters. Most of us living so close to an important target area had given some thought to the matter and then dropped the idea because of the cost. But Trombley had an answer for that, too.
You can provide good protection for only a few dollars and a little weekend carpenter work if you have a cellar that's entirely below ground, just by building a stout lean-to, like this. A basement provides considerable protection against radiation. Anyhow, and this protection can be increased by sandbagging the lean-to. Either way, the shelter will protect you from falling debris in case your house is blown down by the blast of the bomb. Or you can do something more elaborate, but not much more expensive, with sandbags around a corner room in the basement. We're building outside, well away from the house, to get below ground and eliminate the hazard of possible fire or collapse of the house. And although basement shelters can give quite a lot of protection, ours will give even more. But everybody should have some sort of a shelter, because there may not be time for evacuation if an emergency comes.
Well, things really started popping in our neighborhood after that. There still were a few who scoffed, but most of us began to make some provision against a bombing. Ed Martin was working on a slit trench, which he said he was going to cover with a concrete slab and dirt on top of that. Several families began building shelters in their basements. And a few of us went whole hog and started elaborate underground bomb proofs in our own backyards. The Trombleys finished their shelter first and invited us in for a look. It was a regular tea party in most unusual surroundings.
It's not luxurious, but it'll do even if we have to stay underground for days at a time to avoid radioactive fallout.
But what on earth would you do? Sitting down here day after day would drive you crazy, I should think.
Oh, no. We've got all the food and water that we need, and all in cans and bottles, so there's no chance of contamination.
And we didn't forget to bring the can opener either.
And we've books and games to keep our minds occupied. And of course, there's the wireless.
It's a battery set because we probably won't have electricity down here after a bombing, so that's how we'll get on using instructions from the civil defense people on Conelrad channels 640 and 1240.
And we'll have plenty of light, too, in case the power goes off, which it undoubtedly will, and there are extra bulbs and batteries, just in case.
What are those tools for over there in the corner?
Oh, these. They're just in case our shelter gets covered with the wreckage from our house, or if we want to help pull out one of our neighbors who's not so fortunate. One has to consider these things, you know.
Oh, what's that?
A chemical water closet.
Oh, I see.
How about a spot of tea?
Oh, why, I'd love it. Can I help?
Oh, no, thanks. There's not room, really. Here, I'll do it in just a moment. Now, one for each cup. And then we shall do one for the pot. And there, now, it'll be ready in a jiffy.
Well, I must say you have this place fixed up very cozily down here. Even a hot plate. Although I don't suppose that'll be much use to you after a bombing.
No, we just put it down here for the convenience. Now, actually, if the power goes off, we'll have to use canned heat, and we can't even use that very much because, you know, fire burns oxygen, and we'll need all we have if we have to stay underground for very long.
But it does seem a shame to spend all that money for something you may never need.
No, it isn't a waste at all because we can use it as a playroom to keep the young ones out of the house when we're entertaining. Or as a storage place for foods that should be kept cool, like your old-fashioned root cellar.
I can use it as a tool shed. And of course, it can always serve as a doghouse for me when Mum gets annoyed because of my pipe ashes on the carpet.
Oh, John, what a thing to say. Whatever will our neighbors think?
Well, it was a nice party, and everyone agreed the Trombleys were perfectly swell people, in spite of their different accent. But there's no getting away from it. People can be a lot like cats sometimes, can't they?
Fire is a constant enemy to man in peacetime. In war, entire cities have been destroyed by fire from the skies. Now, the threat of atomic attack has increased the danger of fire. The first effect of an atomic blast is an intense flash of heat that can set aflame exposed materials. While these fires may be blown out by the blast wave, they are dangerous. Then comes the blast wave. The blast can start fires in electrical circuits. More fires may come from wrecked heaters and from broken gas pipes and furnace lines. These small fires must be fought immediately by the family at home, or they may become large fires, spreading beyond all hope of control. Organized civil defense fire services will be fighting the bigger fires nearer the center of the explosion. You must act fast with small fires. There are 3 ways you can fight fire in your home. You can remove things from the path of a spreading fire. You can smother it, cutting off the air it needs to keep burning. Or you can cool the fire with water to lower its temperature below the burning point. Fight fire with what you have. If you live in an apartment house, you may have access to chemical fire extinguishers. This water type, the chemical extinguisher, delivers a steady stream of water. It's good for fighting fires in ordinary materials like wood, paper, and cloth. But after an enemy attack, you may have to fight more than one fire, and you would require more water than these extinguishers hold. A garden hose will deliver a continuous water supply. But it needs a special adapter to attach it to ordinary faucets in your home. Use a spray of water to cool the surrounding material. And a solid stream of water at the base of the fire. But an increased demand on water supplies or a broken water main might cause a drop in pressure. For real protection, a pump tank extinguisher will provide a continuous stream of water. As one person pumps and fights the blaze, another brings water in a pail to refill the tank so that pumping can go on without interruption. But you can do more with a 3-man team. One refills, another pumps. With a long hose, a third can fight the blaze in awkward places. Fires may also start up on your roof. Here's where the backpack extinguisher comes in handy. Use a ladder if you can't reach the fire from a window. Climb with your body balanced. Lock one leg around a rung of the ladder. Then both hands will be free to use your backpack extinguisher. This portable equipment is particularly useful in fighting fires in places difficult to reach. Be certain the fire is out. Dig to make sure there are no smoldering embers to flare up again. Even buckets of sand and water may save your home. Sand thrown on burning oil on a flat surface will cut off the air and smother the fire. Sand is also safe for electrical fires. Certain chemical extinguishers are safe for oil and electrical fires. This one shoots out carbon dioxide that forms a blanket of inert gas, smothering the fire. Many small fire extinguishers contain carbon tetrachloride. When this liquid is heated by the flame, it gives off a smothering but toxic blanket of gas. Do not breathe these vapors for long in a closed room. Learn to use chemical extinguishers if you have them in your building. Be sure they've been filled or checked within the past year. But for air raid emergencies, keep extra supplies of water and sand and the apparatus to use them. But why wait for fire to start? Good housekeeping could save your home. Papers, clothing, and discarded articles that may burn easily threaten your safety. Cleaning out your house can prevent or retard fires in advance. Defective electric equipment, like frayed cords and broken plugs, should be replaced. Keep paint cans covered. Store flammable liquids in a safe place. Remove oil-soaked rags. Check the outside of your home, too. Now is the time to play safe. But fire may strike your home. So remember, keep extra supplies of water for emergencies and a pumping device you can refill for a continuous stream of water. Also, keep buckets of sand on hand for fires in oil and burning liquids and for electrical fires. Know your chemical extinguishers. Directions for their use are on the label. Keep any other apparatus you already have in shape for instant use. And when the blaze is out, dig to remove smoldering embers. Then you've won your battle against fire, your greatest hazard in an enemy attack. Firefighting is one of your civil defense duties. Study this booklet now, and you'll be ready if fire strikes your home.
To begin with, it may be surprising to know that radiation is something we live with every day. Far back in time, back before there was an Earth, there were flaming fireballs in space. We call them stars. And there are millions upon millions of them. Each star, like our own sun, is a raging nuclear furnace that shoots out showers of particles too tiny to be matter as we conceive it, along with invisible forces that we call radiation. This radiation and these particles travel through space at fantastic speeds until they strike some other matter which may make new flares of radioactivity. They strike wandering asteroids, moons, and planets such as our own. Everything in space, Earth included, receives this radiation.
Skies partly cloudy this afternoon, clearing by...
Background radiation is all around us in tiny quantities. Nature even planted unstable atoms deep inside the Earth itself. They decay one by one, here and there, in a barrage of inconceivably small and silent explosions. Each explosion is another spark of radiation. All life on Earth has reached its present form in company with radiation from this naturally occurring radioactivity. Extremely thin, with extremely low-level intensity, it has always been with us. It is nothing new. We don't worry about the small amounts of natural background radiation. But to safely handle larger amounts, we must keep our distance and shield ourselves. For as the amounts increase, so do the dangers. The amount of energy generated by a nuclear explosion is enormous. Near the crater area, there is almost total destruction from blast and heat. And now, large amounts of pulverized debris and molten earth are pulled up into the mushroom cloud. This is where radioactive fallout is formed. The radioactive atoms produced in the explosion join with the particles of earth and debris. The mushroom-shaped cloud forms and climbs higher. It now contains billions of highly radioactive particles of matter that we call fallout. The strong winds of the upper altitudes go to work on the cloud, blowing it off in one or more directions. Gravity tugs on the particles. The larger and heavier ones sink toward the ground, while the lighter particles continue to drift with the wind. Some of the lightest particles remain suspended in the upper atmosphere. As time passes, their radioactivity grows weaker, so that the longer they remain aloft, the less dangerous they are. But the heavier particles, spread by high-altitude winds, fall to the ground within 24 hours. Several miles from the explosion, they are about the size of table salt or fine sand. These are the most dangerous, because they carry the greatest number of radioactive atoms and so emit the largest amount of nuclear radiation. Which brings us to an all-important fact. Deadly as radiation can be, it has a fortunate weakness: a rapid rate of decay. And this gives us an invaluable ally: time. Suppose a nuclear explosion takes place at 12 noon. By 1 o'clock, the total force of the residual radiation is at a high level. By 7 o'clock, it's down to 1/10. In 2 days, although still dangerous, it's only 1/100th. But in 2 weeks, it's only 1/1,000th. With this decay rate in mind, consider radioactive fallout conditions which might confront us after a massive attack. Within an hour, fallout would be a serious problem in the vicinity of explosions which occur on or near the ground. By 7 hours after the attack, the fallout area covers more and more of the country as the prevailing winds expand the fallout in a downwind pattern. 24 hours. 48 hours. Without shelter, millions would face death. A few days later, those who have taken shelter will survive. In many areas, people can even leave shelter for brief periods of time to carry out important tasks. Within 2 weeks, Most people can leave their shelters for longer periods as the radioactivity decays to lower levels. The lesson is obvious. We must shield ourselves from radiation through the dangerous period. To do this, we need more than time. Fortunately, we have another ally: distance. The greater our distance from the fallout particles, the less radiation we receive. You would receive less radiation in the middle of a tall building than you would receive on the top or bottom floors, because there would be more distance and partitions between you and the source of the radiation, the fallout particles which would cover the roof and the ground around the building. Only an insignificant amount would get inside. And finally, along with decay rate and distance, we have still another and very important ally: mass. When highly radioactive fallout covers our immediate area, we can shield ourselves through the most dangerous period by using the sheer weight of any material. But the protecting material must be heavy. To shield out some 99% of the radiation, you would need about 5.5 feet of wood, or 2 feet of earth, or 1 1/3 feet of concrete, or 1/2 foot of steel. Even though the thickness of these materials varies, they all weigh the same. Taking a house as an example, it offers a small amount of mass and distance from radiation, but not enough protection in an area of heavy fallout. The solution is plain. Fallout shelters are the best defense against nuclear radiation. Whether in a home for a single family or a large community type in an apartment building, they offer the kind of protection from radiation you would probably need in case of a nuclear attack. But the best shelter would be worthless unless it was used. Most people find it hard to understand how silent, invisible rays, which cannot even be felt, could be so damaging. Let's see what happens when radiation penetrates the body and attacks the cells. What is a cell, and what happens when it is attacked? It's a simple organism which reproduces itself by dividing. Our bodies are made up of millions of cells. They're the building blocks of our blood and tissues. Now, powerful radiation strikes, and cells are injured or destroyed. If radiation stops before the accumulated dose is too great, almost all of the damage eventually will be repaired. If radiation continues, there are some cells less able to function at top efficiency. Should the body fall behind in its recovery, severe illness or death could result. The key then is the amount, the total dose of radiation received. We measure radiation the same way speed is measured by a speedometer. Only instead of a speedometer, we have a rate meter. And instead of miles per hour, we measure the rate in roentgens per hour. We need another device called a dosimeter to record how much radiation a person has accumulated over a period of time. In the same way we record accumulated distance in miles, the dosimeter records accumulated dose in roentgens. With this in mind, let's return to background radiation. In an average lifetime, a person might expect to accumulate about 10 roentgens from his natural environment. Not enough to affect his health. This same healthy person would need medical care if he received more than 200 Roentgens within a few days. 300 Roentgens in the same period would cause severe radiation sickness or possibly death. And as we go beyond 300 Roentgens, the danger of death increases rapidly. So now we see why shelter is vital. The difference between accumulating a large dose because of little or no shielding and a small dose because of adequate shielding is the difference between death and life. No clothing, of course, could possibly provide enough shielding. However, if you were to be in the open during fallout conditions, clothing would keep the particles from touching your skin. There is no such thing as a fallout suit, but ordinary clothing would help until you could reach the safety of a shelter. Then the fallout particles can be brushed off and outer clothing removed. If fallout settles on your food, the food itself is not harmed, since radiation damages only living tissue. And you can easily decontaminate it using almost the same methods you use in everyday food preparation. Actually, even if you accidentally swallowed some fallout particles, it wouldn't kill you. The effects, if any, probably wouldn't show up for years. Still, since there is a possibility of long-term effects, such as shortened lifespan, cancer, or hereditary damage, it's wise to remove the radioactive particles by simply washing, wiping, or peeling. But it's vital to remember this. Neither water nor chemicals can destroy radioactivity. The fallout particles can only be moved or washed away. Only time can reduce their potency. And what of water? Well, here again, the same rules apply. If necessary, you could drink water containing fallout particles without worry or immediate harm. But chances are you wouldn't have to for long, for water helps to wash itself through the natural processes of sedimentation and filtration. And swiftly moving rivers like this would carry most fallout particles downstream. In still waters, most particles would settle quickly to the bottom. Others might remain suspended in the water for a long time, while a small percent of the radioactivity would dissolve. The normal processing of a water treatment plant would make it safe to drink. And water coming from a covered well would be safe from radioactive contamination. There is no problem with breathing, for air is not contaminated once the fallout is on the ground. Fallout is not a poison gas. If ventilation is needed in a shelter, a simple inverted U-fitting on a ventilating pipe would keep fallout particles from entering the pipe and getting inside. Of course, surviving a nuclear attack means more than just waiting in a shelter for radioactivity to decay to safe levels. Survival, reconstruction, and recovery would involve decontamination in many areas. A very difficult job.
Unit 8 at Elman Morse. Dose rate 15 Roentgens per hour.
Okay, Unit 8.
Fallout would have to be removed from important areas by street sweepers. And the remaining particles could be flushed out of the way. Food would be a problem. After a nuclear attack, we would first use existing food supplies from shelters, markets, and surplus food storage. When fallout had decayed to safe levels, people could begin to work in the fields for limited periods of time. In a few areas, the land would not be suitable for food, but such crops as cotton could be grown. Crops for human consumption would be grown in areas that had received the least fallout. The reason we would be able to grow and eat food planted in this land is that the transfer of radioactivity from soil to plants is extremely low. And so, if nuclear attack should ever come, in spite of every effort to avoid it, we must be able to survive and rebuild for the future. But survival can only come through knowledge. The basic facts we must all know are relatively simple. First, there is nothing new about radiation. It has always been with us. What is new is the vast amount we would be exposed to as a result of nuclear explosions. Much of this danger would come to us in the form of fallout. But we are not without personal weapons or defense. One of these is time. Radiation decays, and so we would not have to take maximum precautions indefinitely. Another defense is distance. Radiating particles 50 feet away, for instance, would not affect us as much as particles a few feet away. And our third defense is mass. Any material with enough weight will keep the penetrating rays from hurting us. The greater the weight of the material between us and the particles, the safer we would be. The best way we can use all three weapons of defense is with an adequate shelter, thick enough to shield off a good part of the radiation until it has decayed to safer levels. When radiation attacks, the cells of our body are damaged. Most of them can repair themselves if the total dose over a period of time is not too high. Even though the rays penetrate our bodies, causing damage, they do not infect us and make us, or anything else, radioactive. That's why food remains good no matter how much radiation has passed through it. Fallout accidentally swallowed with water or food will do you no immediate harm, but for long-term safety, it's best to wash, wipe, or peel the food and filter the water. Even if you were caught outside under fallout conditions, ordinary clothing would keep the radioactive particles from touching your skin, but you would still need to find shelter quickly. If we remember these facts, if we act on them intelligently, we can increase our chances of surviving nuclear attack. And the key to survival is adequate shelter. That is why the federal government has a nationwide fallout shelter program. The goal is adequate fallout shelter space for every man, woman, and child. And this goal can be reached. For with knowledge of radiation, we can face the facts about fallout, take action to protect ourselves, and learn how to live in the nuclear age.